Didi.
Hey everybody, Arma here, Cheese Skills, and welcome to this podcast. And today we are starting a new series about building internal power. And this is such a huge part of the Qigong process. And so we're starting with the first one today, and it's all about the foundation. And where to start, how we started, how we got into this whole concept. And so it's going to be an interesting ride for the next, I don't know how many, Didi, maybe 8 weeks or something like that. We're going to see. We're still looking at, there's so much involved here. So
Absolutely. I'm just looking at the list right in front of me.
Well, let's start at the beginning. I think
let's start at the beginning. So how was that for you? Where did you start?
Well, I started with Tai Chi in a very small group of people, right? So where I started school, I started training, was a very small, very committed small group of people.
I remember.
Very involved. And we saw each other multiple times a week and training very intensely. And also all sorts of books were going around, right? We would be exchanging books about Taoism, all sorts of things, obviously Tai Chi and beautiful things, but also books about Neidan, or as it's called, internal alchemy. And when I started reading about that, I was very fascinated because something just resonated. Yeah. Because I got into this training, from that whole standpoint of like, I need more constant energy, I need focus, I need, all these things. And now you read about these things in this book, and they're like, well, there's these techniques that you can train so you can boost your internal power. And it just, it was like a magnet. It just resonated. So after a while, I would start that sort of training, which involved a lot of meditation and sort of purifying yourself and all sorts of training to draw energy into the lower dungeon. And I did that very fanatically for a couple of years. And so that was really the start of this internal alchemy process, this fire method. And that was a fantastic time, I must say. I mean, it was so transformational because sitting every morning, and it just did something. The whole meditative aspect of it was just beautiful. And it got hot. It was a fire training, so it got very hot down there. And it was like, well, I'm well on my way here. This is awesome. And this is what I was reading about, and it was happening. So that was great. But there was also some side effects here now. because of this fire. I'm already pretty fiery type, especially in those days. So it sort of started working against me as well. I was feeling that I was sort of out of balance, too much heat, and there were, emotional issues as a result of that. So it sort of found my weakness. And but I was still on my way with it. I was aware of that, but just still doing it. But at the same time, around that point, I got in touch with Sifu Mark Rasmus for the first time. And we were going to go over to Thailand to train. And when we got there, I talked to him about this stuff. He was like, what are you training, etc.? What are you doing? I was like, well, I'm doing this internal alchemy and this fire method. And he was like, He was not that, he was not very enthusiastically about that. He was asking me questions like, so you're building all this fire, you're building this this energy, but what are you doing with it? Is it going somewhere? Because if you're just training this energy for energy's sake, he was like, why would you hold on to anything? And
that's a good question.
Yeah, why would you hold on to anything?
About it, yeah.
Right? And that was such a profound thing for him to say, and it really resonated. Yeah. And then he gave me an alternative. He was like, well, why not become a great energy conductor? Energy is everywhere.
Yeah.
Just let it pass through you, right? Build an elastic body. That was his message. Yeah. So building a ton of fascia, because fascia is an energy conductor, will help you, become an energy conductor. And of course, there's methods of short-term storing of energy for training's sake or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a turnaround.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it costs a lot of effort to keep that, to maintain that energy if you store it. Yeah.
It's a sort of a. It made sense when he said
Yeah,
it. You know, it
absolutely.
made complete sense in all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
Also philosophically, it's like, why would you hold on to anything?
Yeah. I love that.
And
Question.
energy is everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So, and you're an energy being in an energy reality. So, let it pass through you. So then the training started, and we got into fascia development, just creating an elastic body,
Yeah.
and that
That was great
yeah.
when we start. Well, you started. You did the training with Mark Rasmus, but you took it home,
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
and we started training together.
We went for it.
Yeah.
Completely, yeah.
Absolutely. From that, even before you went over, we saw his videos and we started training already, and we were both hooked.
Absolutely, yeah. So in those days, I think the first time I contacted him and met him, there was like half a year between,
Yeah.
something like that. So I already had access to a lot of his material and started training that. And then when we got in Thailand,
Yeah.
he gave me that message, and it was like, this just
This
makes
makes
sense. So I dropped that fire method
Yeah.
immediately, never went back. And
No.
but although I was happy that I started with that, right? It was the entry, and it probably
Yeah.
works
Yeah.
for some people. This thing, I'm pretty sure, but it didn't work for me.
Yeah, and I think what was a good thing about it was that you had a lot of discipline following the method. So for you, there was it was something to go for.
Yeah.
It was a structure there, and again with the next step you made. There was also a structure, and that really helps to kind of walk that path, to have, if you have a path and a clear understanding where you're going,
Yeah.
okay, now you can do it, and just,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was
follow through.
already on the rails, going a
Yeah.
direction, but now I just
Yeah,
I went to another track, but with the same sort of commitment,
yeah,
right? I mean,
absolutely.
obviously Qigong, to build Qigong is a commitment path, right?
Yeah.
And I understood that. I was like, well, if this is the only thing I will do in my life, this is what it is, because it was such a deep, profound, resonating thing going on with it that, I mean, the discipline was not an issue for me at all. I just realized, you have to, walk the path and just do that
and
stuff.
that's so important. It's not something you can do every month and then do a full day. That will not help.
It just doesn't work that way at all. No. So developing internal power, it needs dedication. It needs something beyond the training. It's more like you envision a certain goal. You see yourself in the future. You project the ideal self.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, is that possible? If that's possible, what's in store for me, right? That was just such a big thing. I think it awakened some spirit senses already, right? It was like, wow, there's something happening there, and that already also started with reading books, right? The books about back to the beginning here, but also resonated deeply in that sense. Like there's something. This is on the route to enlightenment. That's what I felt, and it was like this is more important than anything else, personally.
Yeah.
So dedication, discipline for sure.
So let's go a little bit deeper into fascia.
Yeah, sure. So so we're talking about connective tissue here, the white tissue, the tendons, the ligaments. The stuff that connects everything. like a set of springs, right? We're built as a set of springs. Everything has an elasticity to it. So every cell of your body has a little layer of fascia around it, which communicates with the next cell, etc. So all communication in your body takes place on that level. So your nervous system, it's also the riverbed for all the energy streams, the meridians. So it conducts everything in your system.
Yeah.
So developing fascia leads to better communication in your system, an openness, construction, alignment. All these things are in the elasticity. And fascia, connective tissue.
Yeah.
Think about connective, right? Even if I say it's connective tissue. Yeah,
it's kind of the, you said foundation. And also from traditional Chinese medicine standpoint, it's the stability of your system. It holds everything into place.
Exactly, it makes everything work, communicate, but it gives the elasticity to make sure your organs are in their place. Everything is supported, right?
Supported, yeah.
Yeah, so this has a large influence, right, Didi, on everything. If you come from this traditional Chinese medicine standpoint, influencing. Obviously, we're doing a lot of exercises to strengthen the fascia, but also the diet is such an important part of it, right? Because so there's this connection, right, between the diet and the fascia.
Oh yeah, in traditional Chinese medicine, and people who've been studying traditional Chinese medicine, if you look at the earth element, it's all about digestion.
Sure.
But the organs that belong to it, the stomach and the spleen, and then there's also a layer in the body that's connected to that element, which is the fascia.
Yeah.
To earth element. So, they say, it's that what holds everything up.
And channels everything as well, right? So talking about the spleen, it's also about keeping the blood in the veins and etc. Right? So it's So optimal flow, you could say.
Optimal flow, and you want to, the digestive system. It's digesting everything that comes in, not just, and I've said this many times before, but it's not just the food that comes in, but every thought, every emotion, or the emotion comes afterwards, but everything needs to be digested through the system.
Exactly.
And if you have a great connective tissue, and
an open
system,
right.
Not too much stagnation,
it can flow, and it can go somewhere. There's space to dissolve. There's space to digest, as you so beautifully say.
And bring all the goodness to the places where it wants to go.
Exactly. So besides being a great energy conductor, there's so much going on in this thing. But what we're creating also, physically talking about, absolute foundation of this training is an openness in the joints, an openness of the whole system, which is supported by this fascia, so that any stagnation, as you talk about, can just find its way, and you can help in lots of ways to dissolve, release, and also on a physical level, the whole song process. So the muscle tension to fascia stretch, so the openness. This process is also happening naturally when you start training this, and so this leads to a certain relaxation that is supported by an openness, right? Which is totally different, and we've talked about this in many videos, than just, this sort of thing. We're not talking about this, we're talking about an open structure so that energy can sink, flow, etc.
Exactly. And a strong, open body. And
so training this and going deep into that training will sort of reset your system, right? In the beginning, it's just like, nice, I've been doing stretch exercises and things like that, and I feel great. But after a while, this becomes so strong that it will just be there for you. You've changed, you've transformed.
You see, this is the the training where people, if they come in and start to do this work, their whole posture changes.
Completely.
So the way you stand, the way you present yourself.
Yeah.
And when people walk in and there is such a difference from when they walk in and when they walk out.
Oh, totally.
They've changed.
They've changed, yeah.
And they stand differently into the world.
No, this whole physiology is changed, so they change as well.
Yeah.
And, but I went really deep with the training. So exercises like stretching exercises, throwing exercises, but also going to the gym, right? Also, Sifo Mark Rasmus took us to the gym and, showed us different holding exercises with pulleys and stretching into, in a resistance, and then sort of pressurizing this elasticity makes it grow faster, and I went really deep with that. But we also do a lot of kettlebell training.
Kettlebells,
right?
I love the kettlebells.
Yeah, kettlebell
we do
training.
that every morning with the stretches in between, and
all sorts of exercises that involve the whole construction are awesome. Trampoline, you can talk about the trampoline.
And it was something that even before the training, my nephew and niece have this huge trampoline in their garden.
It's big, yeah.
It's big, and
it holds 3 people easily.
Yeah,
right? Something like that.
Yeah. So whenever I went over there, of course, first thing I did was to climb on the trampoline and jump up and down with them, and they are much more advanced as me because they make all these.
They're circus artists. So they're like, what?
Okay,
is that even possible?
Yeah. But even me just jumping up and down and enjoying. But the moment I stepped off of the trampoline, you just feel, wow, there is so much energy, flow, and it was just a brilliant feeling. So that made us buy a small trampoline just to have here in the room. And
in the room. You heard us correctly. You can jump on that without even hitting the ceiling. So
don't go too high up.
But the pressure of landing and expanding, etc., will just create a strong alignment. It will strengthen the tendons of the body. You're seeking to balance, right? The body is seeking balance every time it hits the trampoline, because the fascia holds your construction up. Yeah, it supports that, right? That's not the muscle per se. It's the elasticity. So, these are all sort of quick ways to quickly boost your fascia connection, and you're gonna, like Didi says, you're gonna feel great. You're gonna just feel a lot of more power, a lot of more energy, and all the time. So,
don't forget the partner training.
Of course, that's the best. So, if you have a training partner and you start rebounding energy, so pressurizing someone's base and stretching into their elasticity, and pressurizing it and pushing it off, it's gonna really help for the person to, fast track this development as well. Plus, it's also related to the internal martial arts, right? Like Fascian training, it sets up that quality as well. So rebounding training with a partner is just amazing. Yeah.
And it's just a lot of fun as well.
It's great fun.
It's just the feeling you get, which I just described on the trampoline. It's also the thing when you train with a partner, especially, when chi and energy flows, and it's just fun to do.
There's many layers to that training, but we're talking more about the fascia thing, and that's just such a great way to test it, to strengthen it, etc. And there's obviously much more to it, but this is great. So get a partner, and this is obviously also what we teach in the workshops that we do. We start that on the first day, right? Because it's such a great thing. So all sorts of exercises that pressurize and the elasticity, and then it will just get stronger, very strong.
Yeah, and that's what if I talk about me personally, it's you become so much more connected and you know, it's, you feel stronger. You feel like, oh, I've always been physical in the way of like doing a lot of ballet and yoga and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah.
But also training with kettlebells and doing the partner training, it just makes you physical stronger.
Yeah.
And it changes something in your
Absolutely.
your
And
being. Yeah.
so combining this training with lots of exercises, and we're going to go into that, of course, as well. Lots of releasing exercises will just get this song process going quickly as well. So it's a matter of, it's physical training, but it's also relaxation training, dissolving training at the same time. I think a lot of people in Tai Chi are sort of hesitant about physical training because they keep hearing it's just relaxing, and then it should work. But out of my experience, that's not true. It's a balance, right? So it's strengthening on one side and relaxing. So muscle training also, if you you start working out with muscle training, you're also building fascia. Connective tissue is part of that. But you need to be stretching at the same time. You need to do all sorts of exercises that support the relaxation while you're doing that. So it's a fine balance. It's not just going to the gym and isolating muscle and training. No, it's not about that. It's all sorts of exercises that strengthen the total. It opens the total under pressure, if you will. So you get the pressure off. It's like, boom, you're just open. Now there's room to relax. It will happen by itself, but there's lots of exercises also to support this song process. And there's a lot of, one of my first teacher, his teacher came from China, from the Fei family, from Nanjing, and they were famous in that region. And he was like, they trained with objects all the time. He was like, what? No object training? Why not? They were training with like big stone balls and etc. I've heard 60 kilos, right? Working up to that sort of stuff. They would do hard qigong demonstrations, hitting bricks on someone's back and all sorts of. Yeah, I mean, these were internal artists, right? It's not only about like that stuff. It's just, I don't know how that came in to the world, but it's a shame because you're missing out on the internal power, and internal power is also a physical thing.
I still have a road to go if I'm climbing up to 60 kilo. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're working on it every day.
Absolutely.
And you've got a great energy. We all know that. So, yeah.
So, and we were already talking about, okay, it's the training, it's the physical exercises, and you take that along in your daily life. But there's more to support that, because what I was just saying about traditional Chinese medicine, saying, oh, it's related to earth element. What you're eating is very important to support your facial development.
Absolutely.
If you eat crappy food, then it's so much harder to, or actually impossible, to have a good facial development.
Sure, and not only that, it's such a complete thing. It's on the fascia, but it's also on the focus. It's also on the discipline level. It's the commitment level that needs energy. That needs good energy, and what you bring inside, it's the only thing that's gonna, So that's such a huge part of it. It's not a sexy topic for most people.
I don't know.
But
I think it's pretty sexy.
Yeah. Me too. Because I just love it. We changed that completely.
I love food, so
and,
yeah.
And that's going to be a whole episode in this
but
series.
To give some pointers, something that it's especially the spleen energy, and as we talk, do remember this is traditional Chinese medicine. So spleen energy, if you want a good digestion, the spleen doesn't like very sweet sticky food. So all the candy, which is sticky and
Sugars
sweet.
and
Sugar is like, it's a no-no for the spleen. So for great digestion, you might want to consider taking all the sugar out of your diet and the sticky, sweet stuff.
Yeah.
And especially when it's cold. So ice cream with a lot of the sugary stuff around it, well...
But also the dampening stuff, right? It's more like too
milk,
cold to the milk, yogurts. And you have to be careful with that as well, right? Something that will just dampen.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it always depends on your own system, where you live. But in general, it's not the greatest things for the body to digest. And of course, and I sometimes forget to mention it because it's so obvious, but all the produced foods. So the thing is, most people they always ask me, oh, so what do I eat? And the first thing I said, you always start with taking out the stuff that doesn't work for you.
Yeah. So the more extremer stuff. And,
And first take that out, which is the most difficult thing, and then you start building up with natural foods. And
oh, that's a great tip. Also, when I started my first adventure in internal alchemy, I did a reset of 100 days, and I really took that stuff out. It was like no coffee, no sugar. I'm gonna really focus on quieting down. And so I needed to get these extremes out of my system. And I did that for 100 days, and then I never went back again. That was the good thing about it, because you start really feeling and focusing in a way that was just, I would be so distracted, with that influence in my system. So when I cut that out of my diet, everything started to change. So that allow yourself a couple of months of a reset, and then and see how you feel. It's going to be so much better.
Absolutely. And the time is almost up
already,
wow. And we have so much more to talk about. So.
Yeah, and there's much more coming about this topic. So I hope this inspires you to start this fascia journey as well.
Yeah, I hope that was helpful. And I'm happy to talk about it more in our next podcast. So
absolutely.
See you there.
See you there. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.